Hello, and welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Ladies, how y'all feeling? Brothers, y'all all right? Every time I hear that, it gets me going. But the fact that Erykah Badu, Delora, made a special version of Cloned Tyrone called Cloned Tyrone, I'm assuming that's the name of this version, was an extra special treat to wrap up our latest recap, They Cloned Tyrone. Did you enjoy?
Girl, it was in some ways escapism at its finest.
Agreed. There was a lot to digest and process during the film and thereafter. But guys, hopefully you have gotten a chance to check it out, because we're about to get into it for our recap today. It was released on Netflix on July 21st, 2-hour runtime. Quick summary: a series of eerie events thrust an unlikely trio onto the trail of a nefarious government conspiracy. Directed by Jewel Taylor. Cast, I only have down our main trio, baby. John Boyega as Fontaine. Teyonah Parris as Yo-Yo. And
her.
Jamie Foxx as Slick Charles. Reviews: Rotten Tomatoes, 94% critic score, 100% audience score, and 92% of Google users gave this film a thumbs up. Delora, what is your grade for They Cloned Tyrone?
Ashley, this film was something. All right. So the reason why I'm giving it the grade I'm going to give it is because it breaks my heart. Obviously, it's an over-exaggeration of a lot of things that people in the Black community discuss all the time when it comes to our nutrition and our diets, whether, through food or through media, right? And that conversation of the man, right? But I just, the number of times they said nigga was a lot for me.
Really?
Oh yeah, because it was knocking on Black exploitation. You know what I mean? Playing up.
It definitely had the cinematography of homage to those types of films for sure.
Yes. And at times it was a bit much for me, but then at times I thought this is freaking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I give the movie a B plus for its originality.
Yes.
I can't give it an A just because, again, I'm like, ooh, this has hurt my heart because some of this stuff feels a little like it's a lot as a Black person watching this, but what about you, Ashley? What's your grade?
If this had been made by white people, I would probably see it through a different lens, right? Because then it wouldn't be an in the house conversation in the same way, right?
True.
So for me, the way I see it is it's a commentary we are having amongst ourselves.
Ooh, yes.
And it is such a fascinating conversation that I sat and thought about after this, and even got to hear Jewel Taylor on a podcast talking about the film, right? So
yes,
he said he kind of gave the impression the work speaks for itself, and he doesn't want to put his thoughts that he had going into it on anybody else who's watching. But to your point, I definitely got the sense that as Black people, it should serve not only as entertainment, but also an evaluation a little bit. Yeah. Like he talked about the difference between kind of like blame and accountability to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you can feel that push and pull a little bit throughout the film experience. How much of this are we doing to ourselves and how much of this is completely out of our control? And so, because to your point, it was such an original idea, because I enjoyed these performances so much.
Yes.
Jamie Foxx and Teyonah Parris together.
Period. That's it.
This Scooby-Doo gang worked for me. Okay. And so because of that, it's an A. I told you the first time I watched it, it took me 3 times to get through it because I kept falling asleep because I was in California. So I was still trying to get used to the time difference. So on my second watch, once I got to watch it all the way through, I was like, oh, there was things my first watch I really didn't even catch. Like I didn't catch, spoiler alert, guys, we'll go ahead and get into it. I didn't even catch some of the early references to Tupac and to Michael Jackson and them walking around this neighborhood and potentially still being alive. I was like, that should have been kind of your first thought or clue into possibly what we were going to be getting ourselves into. But I didn't catch it my first time.
The ridiculousness of it all?
In terms of the ridiculousness and the overall like premise, right? Of like these people who are supposed to not be here anymore. Like him saying, of course you didn't notice it was Michael Jackson because he's black again. You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you're going to clone Michael Jackson, I guess he's going to be black and not the whiter version that we got in the future. It was just interesting. So that was fun to kind of catch in my overall watch. But as I said, guys, spoiler alert, as we're getting into things, this movie really follows our 3 main characters that I talked about, which is Fontaine, who's a local drug dealer, Slick Charles, who's a pimp, and Yo-Yo, who is a quote unquote retired prostitute.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go for hoe, but okay.
I'm not gonna call her. I thought about this when we did the recap previously about the White Lotus too. I was like, I feel like I'm not being politically correct. I'm supposed to be calling them sex workers now.
For sex workers, yes.
Yeah, like I don't want to be offensive.
And I'm using the terminology
that Slick Charles used. I know you are. That's why I said like I wasn't gonna call her what Slick Charles called her, but then I was even thinking like that ran through my mind when we did the White Lotus. I was like, am I still supposed to be even using the word prostitute? Somebody let me know if I need to just always say sex worker. But for the sake of this movie, they didn't take it that deep.
Oldest professions.
Yeah, they didn't take it that seriously. He said he sees you for what you are. You's a hoe. So they ain't take it that deep in this movie. But she is retired. She has other things she wants to get into in her life, right? So this movie really gets going once Fontaine gets shot up, because when we start the movie, it's kind of like we see him going through his routine. We see the block. We see not a lot of action. It's just kind of like setting the stage for this world. So when we first get into the film, what were you thinking? Were you just trying to get a sense for the main character? Like, what was your thought? Because I was lost at the beginning.
When I first saw this movie, I felt like it was very oppressive. Like everything from how not grainy, but like there wasn't much brightness to the world, and it shouldn't, right? We're talking about the trap. We're talking about quote unquote the hood.
There are no sunny days.
Right.
There's no real happiness.
Sunny day. The house looks like it's falling apart, but it's an AKA trap house, so you don't expect much from there. And it seems like he's living his day to day. I'm like, what's the point of being a drug dealer if you're just gonna be living in a crappy house with a semi-running car? Like, what's the goals? But again, I'm thinking way too heavy about this. But I was trying to figure out everyone's dynamic. So when I found out that, Slick Rick owes Fontaine some money, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is an interesting dynamic. And then you find out that Yo-Yo works for Slick Rick. I was like, okay, so they're not friends. So what's going to really bring them together? So those were my initial thoughts.
It's funny that you keep calling Slick Charles Slick Rick, because it does go together. They should have named him Slick Rick, because
first of all, a Black vernacular, right? Like this is part of our lexicon. I'm gonna have to train myself. Okay, yes, Slick Charles.
But absolutely trying to figure everything out, to your point. When we're getting into Fontaine's routine, I'm like, he's a very unpleasant person, right? Like he seems like he has a bad attitude.
Miserable.
He's not happy. His mama is talking to him behind a door. Where are his friends? Where's his family? He's just kind of maneuvering through to the best of his ability and did not seem to be living his best life.
I also hated when Fontaine talked because one, he always talked so low. His grills were so big. Like sometimes, like when you try to hear somebody talk, you look at their mouth. I'm like, this ain't helping either. Like, move your mouth, sir. I'm like, what is he talking about?
But then when he gets into that altercation with the drug dealer who was like, I guess, on his corner in his territory,
yes.
I was like, this does not seem like this is going to go well for you. Like, you can't just run people over, steal their money, and then everything's going to be fine. So once he got shot up at that motel, I was like, oh, shit. Okay, well, you know, what does this mean? Still trying to get a feel for it. Still very dark and grainy, to your point. And then the plot really gets popping, right? Because we see the next scene, he wakes up in bed in full health and starts going through the same routine from the previous day. I said, what in the Truman Show is happening?
Exactly.
I was so lost and confused. I was like, so is this basically he's trapped in like a time warp? Does this mean that he is... I didn't know what to think once we got to the point where, you know, he's back and he's in regular health. And neither did Slick Charles, right? He pops back up at Slick Charles' door because, to your point, Slick Charles had owed him money. So he had come over the night before and had, you know, taken what he needed from him. Slick Charles said, you must have sold your soul to the devil. Like, that was his explanation for how he possibly could have popped up again after being shot like 6 times.
Completely unaware, too.
Completely unaware. What did you think was happening?
So the thing that I did going into this film was, all I knew is Jamie Foxx, John, and Teyonah. I'm like, they looking retro and futuristic all at the same time, and I'm here for it. I don't even care what this is about. I'm going to be watching, right? So I knew there was some type of not supernatural, sci-fi element, because the movie is called They Cloned Tyrone, right? And so for me, I was like, okay, what does this mean? Like, with him showing up with no bullet holes, we didn't see him being rushed to no hospital, or if anybody actually witnessed it outside of the dude who shot him up, right? But then there, with the, you know, Jules' direction, he made that routine, he established that routine so well that, like, when he's going through the motions over and over again, I'm like, are we already dealing with a clone? Like, that was like, that's what came to mind. And then when we saw that stray clone just roaming down the street and then was picked up in that black truck, I was like, oh, I think something's up.
Yeah, something's a little amiss. Funny, even with the title of the film, I remember originally when I heard about the film, I thought that everybody was a clone. Like, I thought that Teyonah Parris and Jamie Foxx's characters were like the next step in the cloning of John Boyega's character. Like, that's literally what I thought at first. So again, I'm like, I didn't just immediately think that he was just a clone. I was like, this whole world like isn't real to some extent. I think is where my mind was going. Like, this whole world is like a performance, or like not in real life, not set in reality or something. Something. But you're right. Once it got to the point where you saw the bloody person walking down the street and that black SUV swerves and picks them up, it was like, oh shit. Some government entity is out here doing some weird stuff, right? So Slick Charles tries to convince Fontaine, like, bro, this is what really happened, but let's get Yo-Yo, because Yo-Yo can confirm like what I'm telling you. So the three of them, Scooby-Doo gang, get together to try to track down who shot him, and they end up at a trap house with a freaking elevator in it, Delora. Now, this is where you have to suspend your disbelief, right? Because as Black folks, as Jamie Foxx says, white people be spelunking. We don't be spelunking. We don't investigate things. We don't get in elevators. We run out the house. Would you have got on that goddamn elevator, Delora?
Absolutely not.
Who would have got
Absolutely
on
not.
Nobody would have got on that elevator.
Those actors were as, would you get on the elevator? And they unanimously said no. No, they would not. It is not in our nature because, you know, it's exhausting. So why should we add to the stress?
I mean, when I go into this house
on the street without somebody questioning you, why would I volunteer for this?
When I go into this house, I see it's empty besides some weird little break room. This is a trap house. Empty besides a break room, coffee still warm. And all of a sudden an elevator opens. I'm minding my Black business. Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
That was interesting. Are there any cameras so I can make sure my footprint literally was not seen here, so I can go on to my life?
Everybody is Slick Charles in that moment. He was like, I'm not getting on this elevator. Obviously, we wouldn't have a movie if they didn't. So here we go. My question, once they take the elevator down to the laboratory that they find, is why the hell was Yo-Yo and Slick sniffing and playing with powders and liquids?
First of all, I think that was part of the humor. Yo-Yo, we find out, is a curious woman who had great ambition, but to your point earlier, maybe due to her environment or lack of opportunities, she was unable to explore those inclinations, but they were ridiculous. They were ridiculous.
Slick took a powder that started making him giggle uncontrollably. Because of Yo-Yo's playing around, he accidentally shoots and kills a white lab tech with an afro, natural afro, not even just a Bob Ross afro, a real afro. And Fontaine sees his own dead body. I think I would have passed out. Like, I think I would have gone into like such a state of shock or something that I would have passed out.
It's unreal. It's unreal. 0 stars. Don't recommend it.
The house was completely changed when Fontaine busted back through with his crew. Looked like just a normal house that some people was living in with their children or something.
But what were they going to do, Ashley? Seriously.
He was looking to come bust some heads, but we only had the one lab tech, so I'm not sure who he was expecting to find back there.
Right.
I think Fontaine often acted without thinking. That is one thing that I felt about him throughout this film. Like, he just kind of acted more on instinct and impulse than to sit and reflect and think things through.
Yeah, because the situation that got him shot in the first place, I looked at Dave, I was like, why would you get out the car to shoot people who were ready to shoot you? Like,
yeah.
What? I would have stayed in the car and tried to smash my way through instead of literally getting out the car to shoot. Why would I do that? Where did they do that at?
In the Glen, apparently. So the Scooby-Doo gang decides to follow the recipe of Nancy Drew books to try and figure out what's happening.
I felt like her love of Nancy Drew was a bit endearing.
It was. She had full collection at her grandmama house.
And again, she had the first Black woman in space on her wall. She had, like I said, she had dreams and aspirations. I just hate that she was, having to fight over a $20 blowjob. Like, nobody wants that. No, thank you.
It definitely goes to show that the oppression within that community continued to take down even those who had opportunity and, bright futures. That the environment that was created and cultivated within that community kept them all in a certain place and space. That's super upsetting. Black women, Black people, we can do everything. So this is the point, Delora, where we got to get into these various mechanisms and products that they're using against us. How dare they come for my fried chicken? I have with an exclamation point in my notes. Okay.
It makes sense.
Discover it does. They discover their area is being watched and Black folks are being controlled through fried chicken, relaxers, grape drink used for communion in church, and music. I literally put, we did not stand a chance.
Especially when they are covering all the bases from the strip clubs to the church. I'm like, you can't even walk a straight path and not get got. You know what I mean? And that's
no matter what lifestyle you're living, whether you are someone who just enjoys some fried chicken, which most of us do, someone who is a professional, maybe you're getting your hair relaxed, or you just like, still having your hair relaxed.
Creamy
whether
crack.
You're a church going member of the community, whether music is going to permeate even some people who that's not even what you want to listen to. You could just turn the radio station.
Exactly.
And you hear one of it. So they were using all these tactics to control our minds in various ways, right? Like the chicken had the powder in it that was making people like more giggly, and everything really was about keeping you though docile to a certain extent. That's what I kept getting, because in church, David Alan Grier, by the way, was phenomenal.
He is perfection. He is literally one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. I mean, from day one within Living Color, and I've literally followed him through everything, literally. So
the fact that he was saying, you got the bills that ain't getting paid, you got this and that's happening to you, but we, don't worry about any of that. And they start dancing and stuff. Like, what's scary is that they're
to back that ass up.
I'm not sure what song was playing, but it wasn't churchy. It wasn't churchy. No. But I will say that there was so much truth, though, in so many of the things. Because to your point, a poor diet does impact you in a way that's going to be negative for your health, right?
Yes.
Having certain messages that you even receive from the church, like, oh, don't worry about anything, give it all to the Lord. That's not always a good message either, because you're going to take that to, some people take it to mean that
too seriously,
you do not have any control over your own circumstances in order to pull yourself up to better your situations. Faith
without works is dead. You actually got to work towards something. Like one of my favorite sayings is like, Lord, my favorite prayer is, Lord, bless my effort. That means you actually got to put something towards it, for him to bless. He can't bless nothing.
Absolutely. And then the music.
Lord, that's
how dare they get my
another
music.
level. They didn't even do TV, which is also something that, people talked about all the time too.
My other one was liquor. I am shocked.
Yes.
I thought that my second watch, I was like, I'm shocked they didn't have like Hennessy or Crown or something being another tactic.
Even the lottery, that message that you internalize when you read, you lose over and over again. That affects your mindset too. This is quite deep, y'all. If you really take a closer look at it. A lot of successful people understand that mindset is literally everything. Mm-hmm. And I saw this interview with Mahershala Ali, who he said he learned this from his parents, and he's like, never go to sleep listening to TV. Like, he's like, you do not know what your subconscious is picking up. And I say that because, hear me out, you guys. Whenever I need a mindset change, I revamp my affirmations and I listen to them. And I listen to them before I go to sleep. And I listen to them when I wake up in the morning. And I listen to them throughout the day, because I'm trying to get it into my subconscious so it becomes second nature. And once that seed has been planted, then all types of fruitful things can happen as a result. The same can happen for negative messages as well. And so it's like, you have to be very diligent in what you consume through your eyes, your ears, your nose, and your mouth. I'm just joking about the nose.
All the orifices.
Well, hey, if we really want to get down to conspiracy theories, people have this thing about chemtrails, which is something that we could ingest and negatively impact what the hoods, according to some people's theories. I can't say I have no proof to that, but I've heard that conversation before.
I think what you said was so well said. And I think that to the overall point of all of it, right, is this idea again of how much control do we ultimately have over our own lives, over our environment? Like, sure, people could have chosen not to consume one or two of these things, but they had created it to such a degree that it permeated the community in one way or another. So you almost feel like, how were any of them ever going to escape from the tactics that they were employing?
Yes.
I think that there were still opportunities for them to shock us in other ways with some of the things that they could have been doing to Black people in this film. Because when I think of projects like Get Out, that was terrifying in a different way. Like, this is still, for me, terrifying to think that
yes,
that people would be experimenting on us and doing things to us to manipulate us and all of that. But I guess at least at this point, it was like, well, at least they're not taking our bodies. Like, because I had that to kind of go off of.
interesting.
I was like, but I've seen something just a little bit scarier. So at least they haven't taken my body completely in this movie.
I think it's interesting that you talk about Get Out, because I was thinking, like, this is the evolution of, the Black horror social commentary type of film, right? Like, we're having different conversations, but the horror is an exaggeration of things that could be true to an extent. I mean, let's not forget, when it comes to the creamy crack, we have a class action lawsuit. Black women have class action lawsuit against the makers of relaxers and how it's impacted their health.
Oh, yeah.
Them getting cancer, their inability to have children because they have, uterine cancer as a direct link. And it's like, what else have we been taking for granted?
Yeah.
Because it's been a quote unquote staple of our community that's actually killing us.
Right. And we obviously now take this even beyond just what's affecting the Black community, because it feels like everything with our environment is killing us in one way, shape, or form. Particularly living in the US, we talk about food in general, all the different regulations we have that allow them to put anything and everything into our food. It's all about,
the wrong type of regulations, right? Because like, if you go over to Europe, they are very adamant about like the number of
vigilant
and things that people ingest. Even chemicals is allowed to be made over there. Like, there's a strict list. So,
for sure. Even within the US, going to California, I noticed the difference in the quality of their food because of the difference in the governmental regulations they have about certain things than I experienced living in Florida and elsewhere within the United States. And that's just an example, because again, to your point, when you go out of the country, like every time I've gone out of the country and I come back, everything here tastes like shit for a while because of that difference. Like, tastes terrible to me.
That, and you don't feel like shit either after you eat, because I can
even drinking is different.
Wine, butter, bread. Did I get bloated? Did I feel heavy? Did I feel gross after? No, I did not.
Yep. It's such a difference. But particularly, again, going back to just this commentary on things that could be going on within the Black community, it was disturbing. I think the difference to me between seeing it in this film and seeing that depiction of the takeover of Black folks in Get Out was, it felt very personal in Get Out, right? Because you're being deceived by someone you're in a relationship with and that's supposed to love you. Whereas this feels big government, outside of my control type thing.
Yes.
The man. So it feels a little bit less personal and more like, okay, that feels more like something that I'm going to experience in reality, versus if I am in love with somebody and they take me to their parents, country house or whatever, oh, I'm taking a gun. I'm taking all of y'all motherfuckers out with me if it
We
comes
ain't
down
spending
to
the
it.
night.
You ain't taking me nowhere that has a cornfield past 3 p.m. Like, I just, so that felt like super, that felt super personal. So I think that's another distinction for me between these two projects. But let's move forward in the plot of the film. So they make it over to the church based on advice from Frog, this homeless man who's been sitting outside of like the corner store, and yet it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Like he's the man behind. He sees and knows everything that's going on.
He be knowing.
He speaks in riddles. He speaks in tongues that you have to decipher, but he be knowing. So they make it to the church, and there's another elevator under the pulpit of the church, Delora.
Crazy. And then also the commentary about the church too is like, you have this Black church, but then the images of Jesus is a white man, right?
Yep.
And that's a lot to be said there too. That's all I'll say for right now.
Well, this discovery leads to an even bigger lab. So our trio, they steal some suits and they take a little tour. Shocking and disturbing. We see all types of experiments going on through music, through mind control of different means. We see a lady, her eyes have been kind of pushed wide open for her to watch all these different messages.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's disgusting. It's disturbing. Also, we find a room full of clones because Fontaine wasn't leaving until he found what he was looking for, which is the source of this whole cloning situation. But not only do we find clones of Fontaine, we also find clones of Slick Charles, as well as multiple other members of the Glen.
The pastor.
Delora, I started wondering, how many times have they died and been replaced? Like, how long has this really been going on? I was guessing often for Fontaine, because again, he's a pretty unpleasant person.
Yes. So 3 things, Ashley. 1, they keep going on these elevators, finding these laboratories. You don't think they got cameras on these elevators? 2, I find it interesting that whenever Black people want to infiltrate or go quote unquote undercover, they literally have to be completely masked up, because one of Shonda Rhimes' shows was about like a cat and mouse thing, and the lady goes into these fancy parties with her dresses and everything like that. And it's like, well, her ability to do all that is her white privilege, right? It's like, I wish a Black person,
Alias.
Yeah, I wish a Black person would be able to walk into a place with a pretty dress and just not be questioned ever. You know what I mean? One last thing, she is, I hate that I'm not remembering her name, but she is the epitome of Black girl magic. She is in charge of CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and she's married to George Lucas. But she said that she went to some party.
Oh, Melody Hobson.
Thank you, Melody Hobson. She attended this party with another high-profile Black person, but somebody walked up to her and him and asked them if they were the help. You know what I mean? And it's like, do you not know who they are? Like,
I mean, seriously. Melody Hobson is out there.
Yes. And so I say all that to say, I love how they had to be completely clothed to be able to infiltrate this hive of activity, because that's what's necessary for Black people in these type of situations.
Well, particularly at this point too, because all we've seen of the workers, quote unquote, are white folks. We don't know of any Black folks.
Yeah.
Particularly white men. Great point. White men. We have not seen any Black folks or necessarily any women who are a part of this operation. So totally makes sense. They would have to go incognito.
Exactly. And my final point, the third point, where is and who is Tyrone? We're in the middle of this movie.
Yep.
Where we've only been talking about Fontaine. So
at this point, I was like, Tyrone was just a random known Black name that they just threw into the title because it rhymed. That's what I was thinking at this point. They cloned Tyrone just sounds good. That's what I was thinking. They cloned Fontaine, didn't have the same ring, right? That's what I just assumed. That's what I assumed. We'll get back to that though. So once they go through this lab and they uncover what they uncover, yet again, they like, shit, what we about to do, you know? So they go back up to the surface and they end up coming through a strip club. This time we see the white DJ, which I'd be suspicious going to the hood and there's a white DJ. Let me be honest with y'all.
That was funny to me. That was funny.
He uses the most severe mind control I feel like we've really seen in the movie so far, when he basically sends the entire club after them, right? Just using music to subdue them and control them. Somebody said it was like Thriller. Like we got the whole cast of Thriller coming after him. I think it was Jamie Foxx character.
Oh yeah, it did look like it.
It definitely looked like it. So then we have Kiefer Sutherland's ass pop up in this movie with another Fontaine clone in tow named Chester, trying to clean up this scene that has unfolded. I think everybody probably, when you first saw Kiefer Sutherland, you was like, oh, he's the big bad. And then he essentially tells us like, nah, I'm basically mall security. There's people who are higher than me who are really running this show, right? And he's claiming that his mission, their mission, is to keep the United States united, Delora. Keep certain people there, like Slick Charles and Fontaine, to keep the area from being gentrified, essentially, so that they can continue to do their work and experiment on the Black folks who live there. We also realize all the clones can be controlled with the words Olivia Black. This scene was one of the hardest to watch in the movie for me, because I think up until this point, it felt like, oh, maybe there's something they can really do. Like maybe they're really going to figure this out and they're going to be able to rectify whatever is going on. I felt hopeless. I felt as hopeless as they did once he controlled their actions. How did you feel?
Same. I really didn't know the way out of this movie. I think that was another thing that I did appreciate about the originality of the story, is it wasn't formulaic in a way that I could figure it out. I had no idea what was up, what was down. I did assume Kiefer Sutherland was the big bad because, I mean, one, he's a white man. Two, he's Kiefer, well known, right?
Yeah.
You don't expect him to do any throwaway type of roles, I didn't know which way it was up. And if they were all clones, what was the likelihood of them actually reaching anyone from, to the top?
Yeah. And it's like, if y'all can be controlled just with some words, how the fuck, like, how are y'all ever going to escape from any of this? Like that, again, I felt hopeless. But also when he said the thing about we're doing all this to keep the United States united, I was like, so basically you're telling me that this has still been going on since slavery. So even though we escaped slavery physically, we've been enslaved mentally since then. Y'all only do this to Black people. Y'all don't do this to any other communities.
Right.
Horrifying.
Right.
Horrifying.
Why?
We have only ever been minding our Black motherfucking business.
From the age, the dawning age. Okay.
Bruh.
Y'all came over here.
Bruh.
Put us on some boats.
Bruh. Entirely too much. Yo-Yo still wanted to fight, but Fontaine and Slick had really given up there for a little bit. But I feel like maybe it's easier for her not to feel as hopeless because she was the only one who was really human. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Because like at that point, talk about the existential crisis of like, what number am I?
Yes.
Does it really matter?
Nothing is real. My memories aren't real. I've never really lived. How old am I really? Like Fontaine, we get the impression that the Fontaine that we get to know, which I love, Van from Higher Learning called him John Wick Fontaine. He's the John Wick Fontaine. We get the sense he's still fairly fresh in this world, right? He's probably only been out here for maybe a week, if that. And to the point of, what's crazy is as many times as they must have died, how did they always do it in such a way that didn't cause that same level of like people seeing it and figuring it out?
Right.
Because this was a very public killing of him. But how did he die other times that it was just kind of like, oh, well, Fontaine, still walking around because multiple people thought he had died. The people who shot him, Slick, Yo-Yo. You know what I'm saying? When he popped up at that hair salon, they were like, how the fuck?
At least be hospitalized. I mean, literally next day.
Something. And guys, I'm sorry I'm cussing a lot this episode. I've been trying to cut down on my cussing, but this film is bringing it out.
Was filthy when it came to language. I was like, yo, I don't think I've sat through a movie that cussed this much since a Tarantino film. Like, I really don't recall.
This could have definitely been a Tarantino collaboration, but then again, I would have had to evaluate it differently. If a white person had been involved in this,
not all right.
This would be a very different conversation.
Because what do you get out of this conversation? Like, and no,
I'm good. Mm-mm. I'm good. The scene where Fontaine discovers his mother is just a voice box in the other room. Damn.
I knew it was the case from day one. I did.
I knew something was amiss, but I think in that moment, he was already feeling so down about everything. It was like, this is just the gut punch. He is alone in this world, right?
Literally. But yeah, I was like 99% confident. I'm like, there's no person in there. They got her saying the same thing over and over again. You'll never see her. Nope. It
made me wonder, yo, is Yo-Yo's grandma real? We didn't see Yo-Yo's grandma.
We did not. And then again, I was going to say, how do you know which people are clones and which ones aren't? But the leaders of each segment work the clones. So the pastor, the drug dealer, the pimp. And I thought, that was fascinating as well.
Mm-hmm.
The leaders of the community were controlled.
But what's crazy about that, again, is how long could you get away with that without the elders who are still alive, who are not clones, noticing that those people have never aged?
Never changed.
Getting into the nitty gritty, but definitely something that I thought about. Because even in a lot of our vampire things, vampires don't age, so they got to move on after a while. Otherwise, the humans get suspicious. Like, you've been looking like this since 1975. Exactly.
And be like, oh, no, that's my distant cousin.
Exactly. Like, oh, I found a black and white photo you was in. And you was looking, who are you? You look the exact same. So that was something I thought about for sure. But thank God for little Junebug with his little Capri Suns. Because he came through and warmed my heart. I was like, well, if you ain't got nobody else, at least you got a little Junebug over here talking about SpongeBob with his whole soul. In the grand finale, Delora, Slick Charles and Fontaine recruit the whole hood to bamboozle and break into the lab. Yo-Yo got herself captured trying to send information to like a major publication. Do you think she actually had a plan, though, when she got kidnapped? Or was it just a good thing, thankfully, she had on that wig and the cavalry came? Did she have a plan?
I think there was a plan, because I don't think she would have worn that wig otherwise.
She's been wearing that wig the whole damn movie, though.
I know, but I don't know. That's my theory. That's my theory.
It did seem like she had a confidence that made me think there was a plan. I just wish that they had said what it was she was thinking. Because I'm like, how'd you even know they were going to use a relaxer? They could have used any type of mind control tactic on you. Thank God it was the relaxer, right? And we love Yo-Yo. I loved Yo-Yo. So I wanted her to be safe.
I mean, the performances, they better be getting Oscar nominations. If Ryan Gosling can get one for Barbie, then
and he is.
And he is.
He is.
So go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead, Teyonah. Yep. John
Especially
Boyega.
Jamie.
Can we talk about John Boyega's career for 5 seconds? Like, the diversity of his roles are quite impressive. Like,
Yeah.
you are a king of an African country, and then you are a go-to drug dealer in the next. Bravo, sir. Bravo.
I enjoy John Boyega a lot. He's
Yeah.
great. And the biggest twist of all in this film, turns out the original quote unquote Fontaine is who we have to thank for being the lead geneticist of this operation. Due to the death of his brother, Ronnie, who we'd heard about throughout the film from Fontaine, decided that it's better to assimilate than to be annihilated, Delora. So essentially, he was going to turn all Black folks white over the next few generations. He said it's not enough to think the same. We have to be the same. What did you think about this ultimate revelation of the deviousness of this plot?
It was doing a lot. It was, especially when the goal is to completely assimilate. I was like, oh, that's a lot. But I mean, we kind of talked about this in other conversations, but I know in Brazil, there's a famous painting that talks about the Black grandmother, and then, you know, the generation being with white people and the babies eventually being white. Like, that is a goal because of the colorism being so awful in that country. It's really sad when that's the intention, right? Like, to me, that makes me absolutely uncomfortable, and I do not agree with it at all.
I found it utterly terrifying, Delora, because I love my melanin. I love being Black.
You know, if someone were to ask me if you could come back, would you be a Black woman again? I would be like, absolutely. Why would I be anything else? Like, do you know what it's like to be me? It's fantastic. Anyway,
tell him, girl, tell him.
Like, despite all the bullshit, it is 1000% worth it coming back as a Black woman. You know, this movie needed a why, because that is what I was saying the entire time while I was watching it. Why control these people? Why? And it's like, well, they're going to do it. So they're going to do it anyway. So we might as well assimilate.
It just made me sad that that one person's trauma was going to have this type of catastrophic impact on the world. Ooh. We've seen that with many leaders in history.
Yes.
But obviously there are so many people behind the scenes who have had such large impacts that we just don't even realize and don't even know about. So that was another thing I took from this movie, is like, how many people behind the scenes, based on their own trauma and their own experiences, are fucking it up for the rest of us.
Preach.
Same thing with the plot of that show I told y'all about on Hulu. That was one of my hidden gems previously, Class of 09. Alfred from Atlanta, because of some things he had went through, is the reason why AI became what it became in the FBI on that show. And it was like, we're all just human beings taking the things we've been through and using it. And some people use it for very evil, awful things. And so for it to be the whole overarching plot of this movie to be in the hands of us, to be a Black man doing this to us, damn.
Well, that's what they say all the time. If we're having the internal conversation out loud, it be our own.
It be our own.
I.e. Clarence Thomas.
Oh my gosh. Clarence Thomas cannot truly be Black. He has to be wearing a mask. He has to. It has to be some Mission Impossible shit, and we're going to see him rip that off someday, and he going to be wearing a KKK robe and be a white man underneath. Like, ain't no way.
Who hurt you? Who hurt you, sir?
Bruh. He is either Chester or OG Fontaine. Like, he's one or the other. He's either a puppet or he, to your point, has had something that's happened to him that has made him hate himself and every Black person in his path. Jesus. Anyway.
Ooh, that was deep. Snaps. That's that.
The poetic justice of this film is in the fact that old Chester kills OG Fontaine, because at Olympia Black, Fontaine used it to get Chester to do his bidding and shoot that man and kill him. That was poetic justice. Killed by both of your clones, essentially.
Crazy.
Like, that's wild. So inevitably, the trio survives. You see all the people in the hood on the news. All the clones they've set free. The trio decides they're going to head to Memphis because that's where Yo-Yo wanted to go. But also, they're going to continue to fight the good fight because, as they know, things didn't just stop at the Glen. There's other things going on. So, to that point, this whole movie, we've been wondering it. Who the hell is Tyrone? Finally, at the very end of the movie, we see another Fontaine-looking clone living in Los Angeles. Yeah. Seeing the news of the clones from the Glen. And the guy looks over and says, damn, that's you, Tyrone.
Finally.
Why did they leave it to the end to be introduced to Tyrone? Does this mean we're going to get a sequel?
I hope so. And then I don't, because I have no idea what direction they're going to go in unless, it'll be some type of like mini riots or revolts that eventually culminates to some bigger operation.
On some Westworld shit, Delora, let the clones rise and kill the people that have put them in this situation. I would absolutely subscribe to watching that film. Absolutely. Absolutely. Final question. Have Tupac and Michael Jackson been cloned?
No. I know aliens exist, but I don't believe in human clones. I don't.
I think it's going to shock the hell out of you someday when there are clones that probably those folks in past before then, they took their cells, they did something, and they're going to recreate them. Whether it's going to be in our lifetime and we get to see them, I'm deep in my sci-fi thoughts that, yeah. They've done something with these, especially the superstars. And I think they've done all sorts of weird things.
You think
and that
so?
they're holding their cells and holding, some people are in like a cryo freeze and all sorts of shit. Like, I think all that stuff is a Demolition Man. Y'all remember that movie? I think all that shit is real. Like,
well, what was the name of the famous reporter, Larry King, when he died, it was almost unreal because he was so adamant about not wanting to die, right? And not and like I think he said stuff about like being frozen or something before, and I don't know, man. It's
so if
crazy.
You see a little kid running around with them glasses on, just know.
I do feel like, I don't believe people come back, but I do feel like there's something in our genetics that have like, similarities to people in the past. Like, have you seen Michaela Cole next to like some ancient Egypt African statue pitch? It's like uncanny. It's uncanny.
I told you, Michaela Cole is like the epitome of Black beauty to me. Like, Michaela Cole's face is like art.
It's quite stunning, actually. It's like
her face is like art. Yeah, she's stunningly beautiful.
But those cheekbones have been in ancient pictures. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
there's only to the point of there's only so many ways to, create a human. Like, there's only so many ways to create us. So there are definitely a lot of similarities. But I really do, in my heart, Delora, think that all the weird shit is real. Except for like, I don't think vampires exist. I don't think werewolves exist.
It'd be nice though.
No.
To an extent. Not if they glitter. No, I'm just joking.
I don't need any of those things to be real. Yeah.
And I don't need vampires. But what I will say is this. People said this online and I wholeheartedly agree. They're like, we're so busy looking into space and wondering what's living out there. You need to be looking at what's in our waters because we have not touched the tip of what's in the depths of this world. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, the ocean terrifies me, I think, more than space, honestly, in terms of creatures that live in the dark. One more thing. Did you see that they found a 46,000-year-old bacteria that came back?
I saw them. They brought back a worm.
That
I
worm,
saw
yes,
that.
yes, the
Yes.
worm. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
They
Like,
on some Jurassic Park stuff. That's why, like, I'm not Larry King person. I don't need to live a long time. Like, when it's my time, I'll be ready. Because
especially if I
this shit
can't
is
have
too
my
much.
family and friends, like, no,
Girl,
thank you.
It's entirely too much. I'm exhausted at 35, bro. Like, I'm not saying I want to go anytime soon, but I'm saying ain't no way I'm
God
trying to
is
live
gonna
no
bless us
multiple
with
lifetimes.
a healthy, long-lived life.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm just saying I'm good on some multiple lifetimes and extending past when I'm supposed to be here. Like, I'll be good. So, Delora, give me any final thoughts you have before we wrap up this recap of They Cloned Tyrone.
This was a wild ride. The performances were phenomenal. The writing, the directing, bravo to this young Black man, Joel Taylor. I look forward to seeing more of his work. This is the stuff that we are craving in terms of original thought, in terms
Absolutely.
of thinking outside the box and doing it well. Bravo.
Agreed. And damn, I do not want to give up my fried chicken, but y'all got me thinking. So I guess good job. Good job. All right, Delora, let's move on to hidden gems for this week. What you got for the people?
All right, Ashley, I have 2 hidden gems this week and we share one. So I figure we could talk about it together. Survival of the Thickest, Netflix. Yes. It is a new series starring Michelle Buteau. It came out in July. This is a delightful show, Ashley. I actually haven't laughed out loud the way I have on this show in a long time. Like, it tickled me. And I didn't finish it. I still actually have 2 more episodes left, Ashley, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I low-key am shipping Mavis and Khalil. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I'm not, but I definitely enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the ride. I thought it had such great humor. I love, like, her aesthetic in the show. Yes. Overall, I love the fashion element of it. And, I'm a fan of her comedy. Like, I've watched some of her stand-ups and stuff like that. And I just think she's just, like, really delightful. She makes me smile. Yes. She makes me happy. So this project did that for me as well. So I really enjoyed the ride of I think it was it 10 episodes?
I thought it was 8.
It may have been 8. It may have been 8. So many things are 10 that I just always default to 10.
Yep, 8 episodes. And I don't know if you noticed, but Luca is Odu from Michaela Cole's project.
I May Destroy You?
I May Destroy You.
I did not even pay attention that he was that show was such an emotional ride.
And you literally only watch it once, but it just was like gut-wrenching, right? Like,
a lot to unpack.
A lot. And it's kind of funny because in some ways I feel like he was kind of like her character in that show, kind of like popping up. Like, go home. No, just playing. I actually like their interaction with one another. All right, and my second hidden gem is a song. It is by the lovely Tori Kelly from her EP, Tori. The song is called Unbelievable, featuring Starr. It is, I love an Afrobeat moment. It is a vibe, and the song has been on repeat since I've heard it. The rest of the EP is nice, but the track number 4 is the standout for me.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Ashley, what do you have for your hidden gems this week?
All right, I have two additionally from Survival of the Thickest. The first one is Happiness for Beginners on Netflix. This film starring Ellie Kemper is probably the most straight-laced role I've ever seen her play as a woman going on a post-divorce wilderness survival course.
You were
And I
able
really
to watch
enjoyed
her?
it. I was able to watch her. I've seen a lot of her projects actually, but it's so weird to see her play just a regular person. And I watched it twice. Like, I really liked it. Does not inspire me to go hiking through the wilderness, though. But no.
But her controversy, you're okay with that?
I actually forgot about that until you just said it. And I didn't think about it while I was watching this.
Okay.
So I guess it doesn't stick with me. But I think the tone and what I got from the film that I enjoyed was this message of like, it's always a good time to like try new things and have adventures. And really that's what life is all about, is like to push yourself forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's kind of in a place of feeling a little stuck and, you know, trying to move on with her life and all this and that. And so sometimes you just need to propel yourself forward. And that's really what I enjoyed about this. And it had a lot of heart too, because it had like a nice ensemble cast of people who were a part of like the wilderness course and stuff like that. So I still enjoyed it for sure. And then my second hidden gem, The Crowded Room, and Apple TV Plus. I was hesitant to start this series because I knew it was going to be such tough subject matter. Yeah. But Tom Holland, I finished it now. All 10 episodes are out on Apple TV Plus. Yeah. Tom Holland really showed his skills in this series. He did really, really well. And I cried by the end. Like, I was so invested. This series made me cry. And I just thought it was really, really, really well done. So definitely encourage everybody to check it out. The Crowded Room on Apple TV Plus, Happiness for Beginners on Netflix, and again, Survival of the Thickest on Netflix. And that is it. That is all, guys. We appreciate you sticking with us for this recap of They Cloned Tyrone.
This just came to me, Ashley. When they went underground, it reminded me of The Shape of Water. Do you remember that movie?
I never watched it.
Oh man,
I've never watched it.
It was another movie about, like, you know, government experiments happening underground. Yeah, that movie was crazy, but it just came to me. But love you, Ashley. Great episode.
Thank you so much for joining us for this recap, guys. We appreciate it. As always, share this episode. Let us know your thoughts about They Cloned Tyrone, and we will be back with more in headlines and hot topics. Until then, be blessed.
Bye.